I welcome you to probably one of my most craziest or insane projects yet. I always wanted to have a steel mill on my layout. It's just amazingly cool. Here's a picture of the Bethlehem Steelworks, and you can see the main components here. So you've got the cowper stoves here. You've got a smokestack, another smokestack. There's the top of a blast furnace there. Another blast furnace. Basically, this is that's actually quite interesting because this one's very linear. But Walthers used to make a kit for this in N scale, and of course, well, things being what they are, they don't make that anymore. I've gone to Thingiverse, and there's a really cool person, and they're actually on Cults3d as well. He's constructed quite simplified. You've got the smokestacks, the cowper stoves, the elevator, the gas reclamation kit that comes out the top of the blast furnace itself, and the blast furnace house. There's also the same thing on Cults3d, and there's some different one. There's a different one on Cults3d, which is way bigger. This one's pretty cool. It's got all the basic components that I want. The only problem I've got is that this is an HO scale. So using the famous calculation for converting HO to N, we will convert this to N scale basically by multiplying the sizes by 55% and see what we get. So we have a 3D printer set up in the garage. The printer itself, this is an Elegoo Mars 5 Ultra resin printer. The wash station and the curing station. I think you can see what this is meant to be. This is when you get to a sort of panic stage and realization that, you know, maybe you've taken on more than you can chew. So you can see here a selection of the items printed, which have taken, to be honest, days. And the 3D printing process is such, or the resin 3D printing process is such, that some things come out quite well, some have little faults on, like that, which will have to be filled in, otherwise the whole thing will have to be reprinted. And some things come out, because we've scaled down from HO, some things like that catwalk don't look right. So what we can do with that is simply take the or the guardrails off and replace them with something else. Some things print very well, and what we've learned from the 3D printing process is it's all down to the software you use. So I've changed from Chizubox to Lychee, which is way easier to use, and auto supports. The auto supports in Lychee are fantastic. So what you do is with most things like this, you orientate them up, move them up a little bit more, add some supports, and they'll come out like that. That's almost perfect, if not perfect. So that's really good compared to an earlier version which was not orientated correctly, even though the program said it was. And look, I don't know if you can see that, it's not right. That's a bit squashed in. I've glued the hat on just so you can see that doesn't look right. So that will have to be reprinted, or I can maybe try and fill that in before painting and it might survive, but even the bottom's not straight. Compared to that, that's exactly how it should be. And then you get the usual problems with delicate things, like one leg is slightly broken off there. They may have to be reinforced because they're very brittle indeed. Again, with orientation, this wasn't oriented in the optimal way, and you'll have to experiment with this, but I say it's basically hanging things down. That bent out, can you see? That's not looking good compared to this, which is the same piece but orientated correctly, and it's not perfect, but it's much straighter. So the 3D printing process is fun. You also get other effects, like that looks good from where you're looking at it. I think that's the channels for the molten iron, but if you look underneath it, that is awful. That looks absolutely dreadful, but luckily no one will see that. I just wonder if it might have to be sanded down so it can be glued properly. But you can see here, this is And we've got some other things here actually to show. Yeah, that's these larger pieces, like the walls, they don't come out very well at all, because basically they bend and they flex like that, and that doesn't look good. So this is where, you know, your Walthers cornerstone styrene models are going to be way ahead. But on the other hand, they don't make this anymore, so that one didn't come out too bad. What I might do with this, the easiest solution is just replace it or fix it with sheet styrene, which is what I was going to do anyway, and just cut around. Same with that didn't, you've got errors there. I mean, this took a long time to print. You know, we're talking 2 hours plus. That's your time. So just bear in mind, this project probably, I'm wondering if I've taken on more than I can chew. I'm also missing a hell of a lot of pipes, so I now need to go back and refer to the diagram and figure out all the missing pieces, of which there are quite a few. That pipe's actually quite cool because that's a hollow pipe, whereas most of them tend to be solid like that. But yeah, some things just don't print very well at all. Again, that's an orientation issue. So when you print, this guy has to be orientated vertically, and we'll see what happens next. One side is acceptable, the other side is acceptable. That's absolutely terrible. That's where the supports were, and it just went wrong, and that's pretty bad. So we can't use that. The reason I'm printing in different colours here is because basically I ran out of the grey colour, and provided you use exactly the same resin, it's not a problem with mixing the colours. So that's the sort of mixture of the two, and then it's gone to this what would you say, beige colour, which you could have done to colour code some of the parts actually. But anyway, some things print really, really well. Look at that, that's one of the gas treatment things. That, to me, once that's painted, that'll look great. Same with that's not too bad at all. That's 2 pieces. So yeah, that's where we are. A fair bit more printing to do. We are more than halfway with the printing. Well, I'm going to simplify the sort of structural elements of it and just have the one large building on the end rather than 2, as in the diagram. I've slightly cut those top bits down because to me, when you look at this, it was just too high, it was too big. So you can gently sand them down. Everything has to be lightly sanded anyway, where you're looking to put the super glue to stick things on like that. That needs to be slightly sanded down, and we'll get there in the end. But it's one heck of a project actually. Yeah, more than halfway done with the printing. Then we'll see. Then we have to start labelling up all the pieces and connect up all the pipes. And again, I will simplify the pipe work. It's, you know, it's in scale. You're not going to see half of it. You know, I'm not a rivet counter, and this is something you should pick up from my channel. I really am not. That's going to need to be reprinted. But yeah, getting there, halfway through, I'd say. So this is what I was saying about printing vertically if possible. And you see you get very, very improved results. There are so many different pieces to this that I need to start categorizing them so I can easily find them. There are so many different pipes, columns, and so on and so forth. By far the trickiest piece on the entire build is the blast furnace, or the top of the blast furnace itself, that you can see protruding. I've reprinted this as it was damaged there, it just didn't print properly. It lines up with this. This is extremely delicate and some of the railings have broken off, so I'll have a solution for that. The elevator chair sits in the middle, and what I've done is I've marked it there, you can see, so I can line up the holes with the bottom of the pipes, and then we put these very small curved pieces in, and this is probably the most recognizable part, and actually there's more to go. There's more bits and pieces that go in on top. So this is definitely the trickiest part of the whole build. And unlike a Walthers cornerstone kit, there's no instructions as to how to put it together or what to start with first. Plus there's no guiding. So in other words, there's no rim there that you can simply just line it up against. That doesn't exist. So you just have to do your best. So yeah, that's what I'm gonna try and do next. And once the first one is in, you can see the second one goes in quite easily. It does line up. It's just a question of exactly lining up the pipe. And the last one. Hopefully I discover that there's nothing I've missed. And I have to very carefully unpick this and do it again. Not be good. And this pipe's slightly damaged, but I don't think you'll see it. I'll just fill it in with filler. And what I use for filler is actually wood filler. You can use plaster filler, but I find that it's a bit powdery, so wood filler works really well. You can buy plastic filler, and what I think is it's very, very expensive stuff for whatever reason. So just buy a reasonable sized tub of wood filler from your hardware store, and that's basically PVA probably mixed with sawdust, and that seems to work really well. So that's done, and now I'm just going to let that dry carefully somewhere where it won't get damaged. Now we're carefully putting the gantry on. You have to very carefully press it against the slide bucket till it's glued. Trying not to touch the railings as they keep on breaking. I was a bit worried how strong the gantry part was, so I've actually doubled up on it. I reprinted it and put it together, and it's hopefully a lot stronger now and should survive anything thrown on it. I also started putting I'm going to reprint that pipe because I didn't like it. I put the very delicate supports in, and I have to say this does look really, really good. And after a lot of work, there is the finished top of the blast furnace. There was a roof over this little cradle there, or shelter, but I didn't like the look of that. It actually added quite a lot of height to it, so I'm very happy with it the way it is. When it's painted up, it'll look really good. So we have the gantry, the bucket, the pipes, the gas pipes, the valves at the top, which I think that's what they're meant to be. Yeah, that's going to look pretty awesome. Oh, I have missed one little brace there. I'll put that in a sec. It's going to look pretty cool. That's the most iconic part of your blast furnace, and it's going to sit right on top of the building, and it will look absolutely amazing. So that's where we are right now. It actually sits on this little platform here just to keep it stable, so that fits under the roof and it sits on there. And there's the unwanted bit of roofing. I just thought it was a bit too much with the cage as it was. There's no need for it to be undercover, the cage as it is. And what I'll actually have to put is put a ladder from there to there, otherwise it doesn't make any sense, because how does somebody get up there? But yeah, apart from that, I think that's really good, and that's where we are right now. I would say very pleased with that so far. It's going to look absolutely brilliant when it's painted up. Next, my plan was to print the stoves, and which came out really well, and then the various gas equipment, of which there are 3. 2 of them sit on their own little stands. One of them is a problem. I noticed it has a protruding bottom, as it were, and what it's meant to do is meant to sit on this framework here. That's meant to be part of the main building, or the main shed, which, because we've shrunk down to end scale, the piles or pilings, the brick pilings, very, very brittle in face. In fact, they have broken already, and they're very delicate. So I've tried reinforcing with styrene, and also with some spare plastic strips. I think they're wooden strips, or wooden look plastic strips. And what I ended up doing was reinforcing even more with sort of corrugated iron type styrene, but to be honest that's not enough. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try and reprint them, and then cover the whole thing in this corrugated iron. Now what I've done is I've done the beginner's mistake, and that's pointing the wrong way. It should be 90 degrees, but yeah, this is where you hit these problems. So until I sort that out, as in the cast house itself, I can't do much with the pipes unless I change it around and make it that this doesn't have to sit on its own framework, which is joined onto the cast house. I think it's on these two pillars here. It somehow sits separately, and just fabricate a pipe to do that. So that's the sort of problem I've got right now, and that's what we will look at next. So I've had to very carefully emulate and cut the sheet styrene into the shapes of the castings, and then I'm going to try and fit them together. And what I've done for the roof, and you can see that's where the blast furnace comes out of the roof, this casting is actually absolutely fine, and I've used this ratio product that I had spare. The ratio itself, if you know what I mean, the sizing might not be brilliant, but I've cut the blast furnace protrusion hole, or whatever you want to call it, out there, and then we'll just see how it looks. It'll probably look completely different once it's painted, but yeah, this has now gone down a rabbit hole I didn't really want to go down, and all because of this guy. So again, we will see where we end up with this. I kind of had a feeling I'd have to recut and reuse the sides of the cast house anyway, but you know, let's see what we can do. This is the stuff I'm going to use as the corrugated siding, Evergreen 4526. As far as I know, it does look very much in scale with corrugated iron for end scale, and this is in preference to using the very brittle and somewhat warped walls that have been printed, although that one's actually okay. So that is the plan. I think this is the point where my new strategy is just to make sure I've printed everything, have spares, and try and construct what I can and see how I need to amend it to fit together. That I will cover in part 2, as well as finishing and painting. So please watch part 2, and thanks very much for watching.